It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. The senior police officer retiring with immediate effect after a damning report into his force's handling of a controversial football match. West Midlands Police raised safety concerns that led to an Israeli club's fans being banned. The now former Chief Constable blames a political and media frenzy for his stepping down. Also tonight, the nurses hailing what they call a victory for common sense as they win their case against an NHS trust over a transgender colleague who used their changing rooms.
My name is Ananda Sulaiman. They are arresting me over process.
Eyewitness report from the streets of Kampala and the security crackdown over a contested election.
We've had tear gas, we've heard live rounds, stun grenades. It's all happening in the heart of the capital city.
Life in the freezer, the scientists tracking some of the world's largest and oldest animals in Antarctica's seas. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. One of the country's most senior police officers stood down today, retiring after what he called a political and media frenzy over the decision to ban an Israeli football team's fans. Craig Guilford's force, West Midlands Police, had recommended that Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters shouldn't attend a match against Aston Villa over safety concerns. It was later revealed some of the evidence had been gathered by AI and was inaccurate. The Home Secretary, who'd called for him to quit, said the Chief Constable had done the right thing. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris reports.
Craig Guilford had to apologise twice for misleading evidence by West Midlands Police, but fought on. Now the Chief Constable has left.
You still hold the line that no AI tools were used in the preparation?
Yeah, I've just got to...
But only after mounting political pressure to quit over how he justified banning Israelis from a football match in Birmingham.
We don't do that. We don't use the AI.
With exaggerations and inaccuracies in evidence to MPs and in the force's intelligence assessments. So Mr Guilford walked before the Police and Crime Commissioner could fire him.
I'm pleased this outcome has been reached having regard to due process and the law. That has prevented what might otherwise have been a complex procedure that would have caused significant distraction, impact and cost to West Midlands Police and the wider West Midlands.
The escalating scandal was far from calm. A ban that was opposed from the start by the Prime Minister, the government having to declare no confidence in Mr Guilford 3 months later before he decided to go. In a statement he said, "I have come to the conclusion that the political and media frenzy around myself and my position has become detrimental to all the great work undertaken by my officers and staff in serving communities across the West Midlands. I've carefully considered my position and concluded that retirement is in the best interest of the organisation, myself and my family." He's yet to comment on the inspectorate report this week into the force's conduct. How it concluded officers downplayed the threat of violence towards Maccabi Tel Aviv fans and overplayed the potential threat by visiting hooligans. A stance first revealed to me in this exclusive interview on the day of the Europa League match in November.
We have intelligence and information that says that there is a section of Maccabi fans, not all Maccabi fans, but a section of them who engage in quite significant levels of hooliganism.
They relied on evidence from Amsterdam and unrest at a game in 2024 to advocate for the ban. Only for Dutch police to tell me in November there were inaccuracies in how British officers portrayed their evidence. We discovered this week they'd thrown away notes from the call. It was undoubtedly a complex and challenging decision, taken against the backdrop of anger over the Israel-Gaza war and concerns in Aston's large Muslim community. But the ban was decided just days after a deadly anti-Semitic terror attack on a Manchester synagogue, reinforcing concerns Jews couldn't be protected here. Only last week did police admit they had intelligence from early September that locals could arm themselves against Israelis coming to the match. But Aston's MP insists Israelis were always the danger, with the injustice the police chief being forced out.
There was no malign intent, so no dishonesty. He protected Brummies, he protected the local communities, and he has been thrown under the bus for doing his job.
But Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood sees change at the top as crucial for rebuilding trust and confidence at West Midlands Police. Now she wants powers to fire chief constables, rather than having to wait for them to retire, as Craig Guildford was able to do, without any admission of wrongdoing for a scandal about a football match that went way beyond football. Rob Harris, Sky News.
7 nurses who complained about having to share their changing rooms with a transgender colleague are celebrating tonight after what they've called a victory for common sense. An employment tribunal found they'd suffered harassment through the actions of their NHS trust. It ruled, though, that fellow nurse Rose Henderson, who was born male, had not personally harassed or victimised them. Our correspondent Katie Barnfield spoke to the women about their case.
These 7 nurses went into battle with their employer, taking their NHS trust to court for allowing a transgender colleague to use a female changing room.
Our dignity has been affected. You know, it's not dignified to walk into a changing room and be expected to get changed in front of a male.
Particularly when you're just about to start a shift, you know, we need a safe space to get changed in. We undress to our bra and knickers, so, you know, it's not appropriate to have a biological male in there.
Their complaints centred on Rose Henderson, an operating department practitioner who identifies as a woman and was allowed to use the female changing rooms at Darlington Memorial Hospital under the Trust's transitioning in the workplace policy. The Employment Tribunal upheld large parts of the nurses' claims against the Trust, finding the Trust had harassed them by allowing Rose to use the female changing room and then by not taking their concerns seriously. It said the Trust had violated the dignity of the nurses, creating a hostile, intimidating, humiliating and degrading environment for them. The tribunal did, however, dismiss the claims about Rose's own behaviour, finding it didn't amount to harassment or victimisation against the nurses. After the judgment was handed down, the nurses said they were delighted with the outcome.
Absolutely thrilled. Can't believe it, really. But yeah, it feels really good to know that you know, the Trust have been found to have discriminated against us.
We will continue to speak up for the rights of women. We're hoping that they gain some courage. They won't be frightened to stick their head above the parapet.
The Nurses' Employment Tribunal case is one of the first to test the Supreme Court decision in April 2025 that defined a woman as someone who was born female. In December 2025, Scottish nurse Sandy Peggy won part of a similar case against NHS Fife. The tribunal found the Trust had harassed her, but dismissed her claims against her trans colleague, Dr Beth Upton.
It simply isn't the case that the law says you must exclude trans women from changing rooms, lavatories.
Dr Victoria MacLeod was the UK's first transgender judge, now retired over concerns about trans rights and launching a legal challenge against the Supreme Court judgment.
The Supreme Court wasn't asked to and did not make any decision about women's spaces. I don't know any sensible lawyers who would say the For Women Scotland judgment was in any way clear. So we're seeing a lot of unpleasantness in society, and that stems directly from what I think is the willful misrepresentation of what admittedly is a very poorly written and poorly reasoned judgment.
County Durham and Darlington NHS Trust told us they are taking time to review the tribunal judgment carefully and will comment further once this has been done. Katie Barnfield, Sky News in Newcastle.
To Uganda now, where the party of the main opposition candidate in the country's presidential election says he's been forcibly taken away by the army. Bobi Wine was challenging Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled the country for 4 decades. Uganda's Electoral Commission says President Museveni has so far won nearly 3/4 of the vote. Well, the elections in the Central African country have been plagued by allegations of voter suppression. Sky News has seen opposition supporters in the capital Kampala being beaten and taken away by the security forces. From there, our Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bagir reports.
A military helicopter hovers over a capital city that now feels like a war zone, plunged into an internet blackout. The Ugandan army are fully deployed in Kampala to silence any dissent on the ground.
People power!
All this as election votes are tallied and disputed, with President Museveni's gains protected by force through the military led by his own son.
People keep getting picked up by the military and the police as they move out and riot against what they're saying is already a stolen election. We've had tear gas, we've heard live rounds, stun grenades. It's all happening in the heart of the capital city.
The yells of defiance come with a quick clear-out, but their message is simple.
Right now, people have voted Bobi Wine. He has been cheated of his vote.
How do you know that?
I'm a Ugandan. We went to the polling stations. The materials arrived late.
Support for opposition leader Bobi Wine is a dangerous sentiment, with men being beaten and taken away. And even our filming is no longer welcome.
We're pulling out of the city centre. We've been held by dozens of military officers, heavily armed, who told us we were not allowed to film, that this is not election day. We were threatened and eventually released. But it's been made very clear that they don't want the world to see what they're doing here in Kampala today.
The chaos around town is only ramping up as news spreads of votes being wrongly declared.
I have the right to speak.
And tally centers turn into battlegrounds.
We have Ugandans that have voted, and this is their right to choose a leader. So I don't know, the international community, what can they do for us? Because us Ugandans, we have tried to fight. We have come out and voted, and we have requested without violence.
This is protesting vote.
The security forces close in.
It's a protesting vote.
And they're not here for show. They take him away. Another arrest added to the hundreds.
My name is Anyondo Sulaiman. They are arresting me over process.
Held for demanding democracy. Yusra Bagher, Sky News, Kampala.
The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, told Sky News today she is 100% confident no more shadow cabinet ministers would defect to reform. She was speaking as her former leadership rival, Robert Jenrick, said his decision to change parties was about uniting the right. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is in Westminster for us tonight. And, John, Robert Jenrick might be talking about unity on the right, but it doesn't seem that way at the moment, does it?
This is uniting the right, Mr Jenrick said the day after his astonishing defection to the Reform UK party. But Kemi Badenoch stepped her attacks on her former Shadow Justice Secretary, really laid into him in a series of interviews, called him a liar, disloyal, and reflecting really the fury amongst senior Tories and indeed backbenchers and activists at what they see as gross disloyalty by Mr Jenrick ever since he lost the Tory leadership in the election November 2024. Now, Kemi Badenoch was in Scotland again. She was up in Aberdeen and she spoke to our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillies, and this is a flavour of her attack again on Mr Jenrick.
We had was Nigel Farage confirming that he had been in talks with Robert Jenrick and the actual leaving. And I'm thrilled because Nigel Farage is doing my spring cleaning for me.
You have said that you want people to stay with the Conservatives. Robert Jenrick is trying to persuade people to make the switch. What do you need to do to stop the flow from the Conservatives to
doing
reform?
Exactly what I'm doing now, talking about the issues that matter to people, like the economy, like what John Swinney is doing, that terrible budget they had this week, letting people know Russell Findlay should be the First Minister, he's the best candidate for the job, working hard. Nigel Farage couldn't wait to get out of Scotland yesterday. I'm still here.
Well, so much for uniting the right. Mr Jenrick's defection and, of course, his brutal sacking earlier by Kemi Badenoch seems to have had the opposite effect. The two right-wing parties are more divided than ever, really kicking lumps out of each other, and it's the acrimony is far worse than it was before Mr Jenrick's defection to Nigel Farage. The two parties are very much at war, and the repercussions of what's happened in the past 24, 48 hours Labour's go beyond Reform UK and the Tories. The Times is reporting that allies of Sir Keir Starmer are saying that he should sack Wes Streeting for disloyalty and learn from Kemi Badenoch's decisive action against Robert Jenrick. Well, earlier in the week, of course, Mr Streeting said that Labour's New Year resolution should be to get things right in the first place. That was on the day, of course, of the latest U-turn, number 13, on ID cards. So the whole episode of the last few days has sent shockwaves, not just through the two right-wing parties, but through the whole of British politics.
John, thank you. It was, said our correspondent, a powder keg atmosphere, watching protesters in Minneapolis follow and then confront officers from US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. One of those protesters, Renee Nicole Good, was shot dead last week. Tonight, Donald Trump said those protesting were troublemakers, agitators and insurrectionists. Our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, reports from Minneapolis.
This is the soundtrack to life in Minneapolis. Word has spread of ICE immigration agents patrolling this area. And a community of activists spring into action.
Get his ass! Get his ass!
This black SUV in front is another car that people suspect of being ICE, and that's why you hear the beeping and the whistles again.
A network of volunteers communicate via a secure messaging platform.
Can I get a plate check on Kilo 77, Florida plate? That one is confirmed. All right.
Modelled on a police dispatch call.
They were both travelling together. The Florida expedition just took a U-turn.
Just right at the lights.
We're riding along with one of them. Within half an hour, we're surrounded by a team of ICE officers. This is our first interaction.
This is your one warning, okay?
Those officers just approached the car and they said if we in this car continue to impede them, that they'll break the windows.
We're going to take you out of the vehicle, and we're going to forcefully take you out of the vehicle. We're going to take you out of the vehicle. You're on camera, okay?
A while later, they're back again. Still, no laws have been broken. 3,000 ICE officers have been sent to Minneapolis, some of them with only a couple of months' training. We're driving when we see a woman at a bus stop.
Help!
ICE agents jump out of their car and pursue her down the middle of a main road.
Excuse me, sir, do you have a warrant for this lady's arrest? Excuse me, do you have a warrant for this lady's arrest, sir?
So you don't have an ID?
She tells officers she's an American citizen. They ask her to show her ID. When she can't produce one, she's frog-marched to a police vehicle and taken away. The woman was released later that day. Lawsuits accuse ICE of racial profiling. Nearby, in a residential area, ICE officers suddenly stop their car, blocking a main road opposite a community centre.
Sir, have you got quotas that you're trying to meet here? Do you have specific targets in mind, sir? You can see here just what a powder keg atmosphere is in Minneapolis at the moment. These agents pulled up at an intersection. Local residents furious that they're here.
A short drive away, we're in an industrial area where ICE have been arresting people.
This is an area with a lot of warehouses and businesses, and we've had reports that ICE are surrounding one of these businesses.
When we arrive, officers have just left. Panicked people fleeing the area.
Luckily, we saw them across the street, walking over here. Thankfully, we were able to lock our doors and deny them entrance.
They didn't have warrants then?
No, no warrants. They're
coming here on the off chance?
Yeah, indiscriminately, you know, just your skin tone, your type of job and everything, that's what they're targeting. But yeah, unfortunately, they did get one person.
They took one of your employees?
Yes. I am a U.S. veteran. I'm a citizen. For once in my life, I'm thinking I'm back in Afghanistan. So really think about that implication. This is not a combat zone. This is America. This is not what I fought for. I don't stand for this.
For some here, it feels like ICE is everywhere. This is a community on high alert and ready to resist. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
It's a long way from his language of earlier in the week. Then Donald Trump told protesters in Iran that help is on its way. But tonight he thanked the country's leadership, saying they had cancelled more than 800 executions.
As you know, Iran cancelled the hanging of over 800 people. They were going to hang over 800 people yesterday, and I greatly respect the fact that they cancelled that.
Well, today in Iran, there was no sign of the protests which had swept through the country. These pictures filmed in Zahedan towards the south of the country appear to show evidence of the security forces deployed on the street. Well, our US correspondent James Matthews is in Washington, D.C. for us tonight. And James, another change of tone from Donald Trump.
Good evening, Gillian. Yeah, he's certainly softening the tone. That's 3 days on which Donald Trump has appeared to step back publicly, at least, from launching any military strike. And we saw him reinforce that today, I think. So the drum beat of war certainly appears, yes, to be receding. That doesn't mean to say it's completely gone away. A US aircraft carrier is heading towards the Middle East as we speak, due to arrive next week. So Donald Trump still does have military options on the table, but publicly, yeah, he does appear to be de-escalating. That's not necessarily something that everybody wants to hear. I was at a news conference today in Washington, D.C., hosted by Reza Pahlavi. He's the man who would, as he sees it, take over leadership in Iran should there be regime change. He is the son of the former Shah of Iran, of course, a man who was ousted in the 1979 revolution. Not necessarily a poster boy at that time. His government was seen as increasingly authoritarian. So this business of who might take over should there be regime change in Iran, you know, it is complicated for Reza Pahlavi. That's a question that I put to him at this news conference today. You spoke about undeniable truths currently in Iran. It's also an undeniable truth that when your father ran the country, there were executions, there was torture, there was secret police. What would you say to Iranians today who are concerned that under your leadership, they would be swapping one dictator for another?
First of all, I let historians write history. I'm here to make history, not to write it.
And James, some news from the White House this evening concerning Gaza and the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. They've named that committee, and Tony Blair, there's a role for him, so Tony Blair.
Yeah, there is, Gillian. You'll remember there's going to be this Board of Peace, as outlined by Donald Trump. He's going to be chair of that board. Well, they have announced the names of those who will be on what they're calling the founding board of peace. That's the announcement today. And yeah, Tony Blair is on it. Quite the responsibility for the former Prime Minister, as it will be for his colleagues, this Board of Peace, endeavouring to steer a process of peace for Gaza. His appointment in particular, of course, has been controversial for some stakeholders in this process, particularly, of course, Palestinians who don't like his history, his involvement in the Iraq War.
James, thank you. Donald Trump has suggested he may use tariffs to punish countries who do not support his plan to control Greenland. The US president also said that he'd been talking to NATO about his plans. He claims America needs the Danish territory for national security. More than 100 people have been killed after torrential rain has caused flooding across South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Mozambique is reported to be the worst affected, with the World Food Programme warning that tens of thousands of people face evacuation and thousands of homes are damaged. More severe weather is expected across several countries in southern Africa. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has said she's confident Nicolas Maduro's regime will be dismantled following her face-to-face talks with President Trump at the White House. The Nobel Peace Laureate declined to set any timetable for a transition to democracy, saying only that she would return home as soon as possible. 2 unexploded bombs from the Second World War that caused thousands of people to be evacuated from their homes have been blown up at sea. The German bombs were found at separate locations in Plymouth and Exmouth on Wednesday. Footage shows bomb disposal experts taking a bomb out to sea. Finally, the seas around Antarctica are home to some of the longest living and largest creatures on Earth. Whales, which were once hunted to near extinction, are now a common sight in the waters close to the British Antarctic Survey's biggest base at Rothera on the Antarctic Peninsula. The ecosystems there, though, are at risk from the impact of global warming, as our science and technology editor Tom Clark found out.
1, 2, 3.
Twice a day in the short Antarctic summer, even under the ice in winter, a team of divers heads out from the Rothera research station. Biologists so intrigued, they're willing to throw themselves into seas a degree or more below freezing.
The thing I love most about diving here compared to other places is polar giganticism. It's something that's always interesting to me.
Polar giganticism,
yeah,
what's
so
that?
Everything grows bigger, essentially. Back home, I work on amphipods, which are like maybe this big, but depending on which ones you're looking at here, they can be like this big. So it's pretty cool.
This is what you get if you ask a scientist a silly question.
Life in the ocean here is abundant as it is absent from the barren glaciers of the continent. Yet even the experts admit they know so little about it.
There are 20,000 species of animal living on the seabed in the Antarctic.
20,000?
20,000. So it's really important that before many of them die because of the warming, we get a real understanding of the ability that they have to help us as society.
But as you'd expect, diving into the Antarctic Ocean is not without its complications.
Just noodling around between these icebergs just to make sure there's not any leopard seals or orca killer whales.
The divers survey sea life on the bottom and use camera traps to record free swimming species. The key thing is they've been diving here for nearly 30 years, the only way to understand how life is changing.
Because it's cold, the biology is very different. And it means that things live a long time. Some of them can't take a warming of 1 degree. The ecosystem balance is changing. The species numbers are changing. We know that. We don't know if it's reaching a tipping point and if and when it would fall over.
It lends a sense of urgency to their lab work. These starfish may take 3 weeks to breed in the UK, but can take up to a year to make baby starfish in Antarctica. How different a world will they grow up in? Another question, just how life manages in such cold places. Stick warm water animals in this tank and for various reasons, they don't work.
One of those is that the proteins in their cells all start sticking together. And human diseases, some of them are related to proteins being sticky, like Alzheimer's, and understanding why our animals don't have problems with their proteins sticking together will shed light on those mechanisms.
There are other reasons to be optimistic. Whales, like these humpbacks, are booming after whaling was banned and sea ice here retreats. Ocean life in Antarctica might help by absorbing more carbon as oceans warm. But it's warming here so fast, its slow, cold biology might struggle to keep pace. Tom Clark, Sky News, Antarctica.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by political commentator Benedict Spence and investigative reporter Susie Boniface. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Express, its headline, "We will fix broken Britain, but not together." We'll be right back. Stay with us.